What's up, everybody? I'm Leah B. Jackson. This is pro gamer Greg Idra Fields.
Hey, Leah.
Hey. And today we're going to be running you through the best way to play as Sergeant Hammer in Heroes of the Storm. Ready to go?
Yep, let's get to it.
Okay. All right, so here we are in try mode with Sergeant Hammer. Tell us a little bit about her and her abilities.
Sure. Sergeant Hammer is a very strange long-distance damage dealer. She's very different from a lot of other heroes, but her main thing is that her passive gives her big bonus damage depending on how far away you are. If you're over 4.5 units away from Sergeant Hammer, she does significantly more damage. It's kind of hard to show at this point in the game because it's really early on, and her damage isn't that high. But there, you saw the numbers is much higher if you go further away. It goes from 50 to 104. So a very noticeable increase there. So you always want to stay very far away from your opponents as Sergeant Hammer. And to help you do that, her Q is actually called Siege Mode. And what that is there's a cast time, and then you become stationary. You cannot move in this mode. But it then gives you range up to the dotted line that you see around her at all times. However, this is not actually the most useful ability. It does not give you any kind of bonus damage against heroes, and it makes you immobile, which is a very big downside. However, it does give you bonus damage against creeps, as we can see there, and against buildings. Plus, it gives you that bonus range. So if you can get set up into an area and use this to push, then Siege is incredibly powerful. But in normal fights, you're almost never going to use that. You're always going to stay in tank mode. Your W is called a 100 caliber blast, and it's a bit of a damage nuke. It does a decent amount of damage, but the bigger thing is it's a knockback, and a pretty significant one at that. And that's very important because everything about Sergeant Hammer is about staying far away from her opponents and keeping herself alive, because she is very squishy if opponents can engage on you. Then your E is called Spider Mines, and what that does is it places a series of 3 mines wherever you want to plant them in a pretty decent radius. And when they have to burrow down, as you can see, and then when they sense an enemy nearby, they unburrow automatically and go and attack that enemy. And if they explode on them, then it causes a slow and a pretty decent amount of damage. So that's great for zoning. And again, area control is everything with Sergeant Hammer. So there, we see actually a pretty fair amount of damage, plus it slows them. So your W and your E both allow you to run away much faster. And in conjunction with that, you don't actually have a mount as most other heroes do. You have thrusters. And what you do is you activate that. It's instant, no cast time, or no mounting time, and then you just run away really fast. So basically, what you're going to do is you're going to set up, you're going to be pushing, you're going to siege up, and then when they come close to you, you're going to W them away and run away. Now the ultimate that we're going to be looking at here is called Napalm Strike, and that's a very spammable, small area skill shot nuke that does initial damage and then damage over time. And that's just it. It's a very high range, as we can see, and it's only a 6-second cooldown. So you can basically just spam this. You don't have mana problems on this hero, really. It's just a bunch of additional easy-to-use, strong DPS. And that's about it for Sergeant Hammer's abilities.
Great. Now let's take a look at her talents.
Talents for Sergeant Hammer. At level 1, we're going to be taking Advanced Artillery. This buffs your trait. It increases the damage bonus by 10%, so that just gives you more additional damage depending on how far away your opponents are from Sergeant Hammer. And as always, you're going to be focusing on maximizing your strengths with the hero. She's really good if she's far away. She's going to be aiming to be staying far away, so you might as well buff the amount of damage you do in those situations. She also has access to Bribe, which is always powerful, but again, on damage dealers, it feels like a bit too much of a trade-off with the other options she has. Then, at level 4, you're going to go ahead and take Increased Range. That just gives you an extra 1 basic attack range. That doesn't seem like the biggest deal, but +1 range is actually pretty big. And again, it just synergizes very well with the kit. The further away she is, the better. The ability to maintain that distance is incredibly important for her. Vampiric Assault and Focus Attack are both decent options because she does have pretty high damage, and she does do sustained damage just because she can stay so far away that she's very safe, so she can get a good amount out of lifesteal, but you don't really want to be taking damage, and the bonus range is just more important. There's a lot of good options in this tier. That's just the most impactful of them. Then at level 7, Maelstrom Rounds. This is when you really start hitting kind of hard. It increases the damage bonus to enemies over 4.5 away by 25%, and that stacks with this initial 10% bonus, so you end up kind of hitting like a truck if they are anywhere close, or if they are outside of that range. Then at level 10, you're Heroic. You're going to be taking Napalm Strike, as I demonstrated. There's just really no downside to it. You can afford to spam it. It's really good damage, it's really good zone control, it's pretty good AoE, it does damage to buildings, so it helps you push. Just everything about it is great. And the Blunt Force Gun, that's that big missile you see flying across your screen sometimes. It's kind of annoying. It's a long range. You can use it to snipe, you can use it to deal damage to buildings. There's some gimmicks with it, but Napalm Strike is just hands down better. Then at level 13, as always, there's a couple of good options. Giant Killer, 99% of the time, just good damage bonus. This Crucio X2 cannon gains +2 basic attack range and +2 vision radius. That is really fantastic, but at some point you do have to start dealing more and more damage. That is your role, and it's just kind of a trade-off, like diminishing returns. You don't really need that much range. You already have enough to be safe, so it's much more worthwhile to invest in that Giant Killer. And then level 16, there's no real good option besides Executioner for the style that we're building her. It is possible to do her more utility, more Widowmine, more Spider-Mine focused, and do kind of split pushing, zone control kind of Sergeant Hammer. I feel like her strength is her range and her damage, and given that, the only option at this tier is Executioner. However, she doesn't really have much in the way of CC herself, so you have to make sure that at least some of your teammates have some kind of lockdown so you can actually apply this. It's kind of just mandatory with her, otherwise you're completely wasting this talent tier. So keep that in mind when choosing your team composition. Then at level 20, 99% of the time, Advanced Lava Strike, it gives you an additional 10 range on your Napalm, and it does 50% additional damage. That's just absolutely fantastic. Long range, great for sniping, great for setting up pretty much anything you want without really exposing yourself at all. And then the additional damage is always nice. Beyond that, Resurgence, always okay. Not particularly fantastic on her for any real reason. Fury of the Storm, also okay, not particularly great. Napalm, or Advanced Lava Strike, is a really great ability. I would recommend just going with that because it's really strong.
All right, so for Sergeant Hammer, it seems like you want to be far away with her. And so with this build, you're going to be doing the max damage from long range.
Yep.
Basically.
Exactly.
Cool. All right, now that we have Sergeant Hammer's build all figured out, how do you sort of play her in a game?
She's an interesting hero because she has a lot of little quirks. Early on, she cannot fight at all. She does very little damage until she gets her talents going. And she has a little bit of utility with her Spider Mines. They're a decent slow, decent damage if they hit, but they're difficult to hit, hard to control. So really, you're not looking to fight early on. What you want to do is you want to set up shop in a lane, get Spider Mines on all your flanks, try and get in a good protected position, and siege up and push. Your siege mode does push creep waves very well. It does do a lot of damage to towers. So if you're somehow left alone, or if someone can protect you and get you in range of those towers, that's by far the best utility you're going to have in the early game. That's what you want to be aiming to do. Makes you extra strong on maps like Dragonshire, where there is that very just nice intuitive little nook and cranny you can fit into in that shrine and set up and be in a very defended position. And you want to play it very panicky. You want to be very ready to run away, because if they do get on you, they will kill you. So watch out for that. You don't do much damage in team fights up until level 10 and beyond, and from there you get very strong very quickly. Once you have Napalm Strike, you can start contributing quite a bit to team fights. Just stay on the perimeter, play like a very, very exaggerated version of any other ranged damage dealer. You're staying as far away from possible, clicking on anything that comes within your range, and if a gap closer even looks like he wants to go on you, get ready to run away. But you do have good escapes. It is possible for you to get away, so you don't have to be unwilling to join fights. You should be in fights. Just play it very carefully. And the bonus of that is the further away you are, the more damage you do because of your passive. So there's really no downside to staying far back and playing very carefully. Just make sure that you're in auto attack range and you're continuing to put out that damage unless someone actually goes for you.
And what about playing against Sergeant Hammer?
Playing against her is pretty tough if she gets going, but in the early game she has very little presence, especially in team fights, so you want to try and force fights. If it's something like Cursed Hollow, just 5-man for every tribute, there's no way Sergeant Hammer's team is going to be able to contest you for that. She does very, very little until she gets going. She's probably not even going to come to the fight. She'll probably just push the lane, so you really want to take advantage of her lack of presence early on. Like with most specialists, just punish the rest of her team while she can't help. If it gets to the team fight stage of the game on an even footing, it's going to be kind of tough. She does a lot of damage, she can protect herself pretty well, and she can stay safe. If you can dive and get to her, she's going to have to run away. So as with everyone else, go after her, burn her escape, and then when she runs away, you go back to the fight. If she comes again, she doesn't have escape, and then you might actually be able to kill her. But again, she's going to be really far away. So this is like the one situation where I'd say if you have an Illidan, maybe he gets the hunt, he goes on her in a very, very convincing manner. He's a hero who could actually do something about her. So if you don't have anything specific like that, it's going to be kind of tough. You just have to try and scare her away and try and limit her damage output as much as possible.
And there you have it, guys. But remember, this is our best way to play, and we want to hear yours in the comments.
Be sure to head over to Greg's Twitch channel for more pro tips, and for everything Heroes of the Storm, stay tuned to IGN.